Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have with me another very special guest, Altovise Pelzer. How are you?
I am doing great. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, I'm excited about this conversation.
yeah, me too. I wanted to talk with you for a long while, and we haven't had the chance, but now is the time. There is no better time than the present. Uh, and that's because it's a gift. Yeah. Uh, so I like to use those kinds of, mantras to and fire it back at people who say it because they don't understand it and they just quote other people. So, can you introduce yourself without quoting other people?
Most definitely. Altovise Pelzer here, your voice manager. I unmute the voice of women who are ready to speak up about what has kept her silent for way too long. Host of the hashtag Speak Easy podcast and a women's empowerment speaker and author.
Yeah. So, what are you offering about?
So, uh, literally looking to see people own their story is really the main gift that I'm able to leave in the world through books, through the podcast, through the blog, through I've done virtual summits where we've had 100 speakers come and be a part of the summit. Those opportunities have been ways that other people have been inspired to not only own their story, but to share it and to move forward in whatever greatness that they're supposed to be a part of. And that has been an amazing space to be in, because for so long there were so many obstacles and things that made me think that I wasn't worthy of being able to do something along that lines.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about what I'm going to ask, and I wanted to start from the beginning. When did you start podcasting, writing, being an advocate, shall we say, for women's voices and people's voices? Yeah.
So I've always been that fighter for other people. I wasn't always that fighter for myself, but I was always the fighter for other people. So
Yeah.
I've been known to get into physical fights when I was younger, to support siblings and friends and all types of other stuff. Thankfully, I never was, got arrested or anything, but I've always been that person that wanted to see people do well. And so, however I could do that, that was me. I was the pusher, I was the encourager. If you had a dream, I was going to try to help you, realize that dream and, surpass that dream. And then I went through so many different things in life, but in 2015, I had a interesting conversation with my oldest daughter, about trust. Um, and in that moment, it was the first time that I actually blurted out that I had been molested as a child. Now, for me, I'm a victor over molestation, but my girls are victors over molestation as well. And so I was trying to help them heal and get through everything. And I had still never told anyone what I had been through. And it was the first time I went and I said it. Now, I didn't want to say it. I wish I could have grabbed the words out the air, but it shifted some things for me. And so it made me say, you know what? 2016, new year, new me. I know a lot of people can relate to that because 2020 was supposed to be new year, new me, 2021. And there's kind of been some adjustments and some shifts. And it doesn't really look like what we planned and put on paper. And so I was excited. 2016, I had started making some investments in my business. I was going to rebrand, start speaking, publish the first book. And then December 31st of 2015, I was evicted from my home. That is not how we're supposed to start a new year. You're not supposed to start a new year homeless, right? But January 1st, I had a decision to make. And I said, well, do I go and have a pity party and just stay in this moment, or do I take the flight that I already had planned? I took that flight. First flight, no problem. Second flight, there's no group number on my ticket. I'm a creative, and so I can create stories in my head, and in my mind, I'm going to jail.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a fake ticket. I'm going to jail. TSA is going to take me away. But I go to the booth and I let them know. And they said, no problem, just go in with group 2. They call group 2. I get up, I'm in line, and I'm like, great. And then they call my name over the loudspeaker. So you know that inner tense moment where you're looking around. I'm looking to see if TSA is kind of helicoptering down outside, or if one of the carts is coming through.
Yeah.
But I get to the booth and they hand me a brand new ticket, and it's first class.
Nice. Nice.
Shifted everything from that point forward. Everything was do it in spite of what my circumstances currently look like, because I do not know what's on the other side of my yes.
Yeah. So I'm hearing your story, and it is so inspirational. I think that things tend to happen this way for a lot of people in life, and it's so interesting to me. So I see that you got a nice painting hanging on the wall. It is very enchanting, very mesmerizing. So are you an advocate for the arts as well as people?
I am very much an advocate for the arts. I did not paint that one though. I love the arts. I think arts, especially in the schools, is a great way for our children to tap into their creativity, tap into that other side of their brain. And some of the greatest ideas in the world have been played around with just people who have played music, people who have painted, people who write and sing and dance, and all of these creative gifts that we have, right? And we think about how when we, put a pencil in the hand of someone, man, there's no telling what they can create. So I am very much an advocate of the arts. My children, I get to live vicariously through them because they've been doing musicals and things like that. So I did not have those programs in my school growing up. And so I had some things, but not to the level of what they've been able to experience. So it definitely puts you in a different mindset and takes things to a whole new level when you have that creative outlet.
Yeah, so when did you start writing, I think, other people's stories, but using your own voice to do it? Yeah.
So I started writing way back in middle school. I won't say how long ago that was, but let's just say it's been a while. My youngest is about to graduate high school, but it was always a creative thing for me. My grandmother, who passed away while I was in middle school, one of the things she encouraged me to do before she passed away was to write, because I'm an introvert. And for me, I could write and speak to you through my writing better than I could speak out of my mouth. I would get super nervous. I would sweat. I would want to pass out. I would have all the knots in my stomach. And so I would not, again, I would advocate for other people, but wouldn't advocate for me because there was so much fear there. And she just encouraged me to write poetry, write stories. And in writing, I saw that there was a healing that came with it. There was opportunities that came with it. And it's interesting because when I was in high school, I would write poetry and I would be like, I want to get up on stage and do an open mic. To this day, I have still not gotten on a stage and done an open mic, but I have been on stages where I have spoken in front of 150 to 200 people. And although it's not the same, I'm not doing poetry. Those words that I've been able to share have literally changed lives worldwide. And so that's been heartfelt. That's one of the gifts that my grandmother gave to me, and I will continue to use it until I can't anymore.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating. Great. So there is something to speak about mental clarity, shall we say. I think, when regards to people telling their own stories, people tend to make up different kinds of narratives that are influenced from their own lives and own experiences, and they shape their opinion of themselves in a different way that other people see them. So, can you speak to that kind of I don't know, self image making or false image
Definitely.
making? Yeah.
And it comes from the difference between um, our self awareness and our need to be validated by people. And unfortunately, our self awareness takes a back seat to the desire and the passion of having someone validate who we are, our strengths, our creativity, our beauty. Um, and then part of that comes from our upbringing. Part of that comes from education. Part of that comes from the worldview of who we are and who they think that we should be. It always an interesting um, scenario. And I've one of the things that I love is that uh, a running joke from my home is that if you're standing outside of my home, you would not know what nationality lives in my home because all genres of music are played in my home. And it's because we have to recreate what a human is. Because for so long, we've been labeled as African American, we've been labeled as this, as that, or if you've done something, you're a teen parent, you're a this, you're a that. And so we walk around with all of these labels. Some people say we walk around with all of these hats. And then at the end of the day, we don't really know truly a clear understanding of who we are. And so when we get to that point of now I'm starting to realize who I am, man, it opens up so many different things. And I work a lot with women who have gone through domestic violence. And so a lot of them, when they come out of the domestic violent relationship, they don't even know their favorite color. They don't know what's their favorite food, what's their favorite restaurant. Do they like to go to the beach? Because their mind has been so transformed by the circumstances they were in. And so it takes us coming out of those circumstances. It takes us being real about where we are in the moment. If you're not somebody that likes to dance, it's okay. You don't have to dance. If you're not someone that likes to sing, it's all right. But it means also owning what it is that you do love, owning what it is that you do like to do. And sometimes that is a hard transition to make for people because we've been so, boxed in by this is who you are. No, that's who I was. Have you ever come in contact with somebody who calls you by a nickname? Now, I'll share this just because it's your show, but I have an aunt that to this day, now I have children who are in college, and to this day, she still calls me woo woo. Because when I was younger, I would see her in the mirror and I didn't know how to whistle. So I would say woo, woo. And that was me whistling for her because she looked pretty. She still calls me woo woo. Now I know how to whistle now, but that's who she sees me as. And it's really important for us to understand that because we can't always change how other people see us, but we can definitely go ahead and make sure that we're confident in how we see ourselves.
Yeah, so I don't want to be too intrusive or to ask questions that are not you're not willing to divulge their information, but to speak to your personal process of discovering yourself. Um, I'm not talking about the trauma necessarily, because there are a lot of other things going on in our lives that affect us. So how do you clarify your mind? How does that process look in your case?
So a big piece of that was the writing. Another big piece of that was communication. And it experience opens our eyes to what's around us. So if I never experience something, I can't really dictate if it's something that I love or if it's something that I hate. Um, the same way that when they tell you, you have to go to an allergy specialist when you have an allergy, and they have to test you by seeing what you're allergic to. So they have to give you those things to see what you're allergic to. It's the same thing. And so many people come to think, oh, it's because of who I'm around that I love these things. No, no, no. We may love some of the same things, but there's going to be people around me that don't love the same things that I love. I'll give an example. One of my good girlfriends, I consider her my sister.
She calls you
Her
woo
and
woo,
I,
maybe, perhaps.
yeah, yeah, I love the water. And so we've been going to restaurants that are next to the water so we can watch the
Yeah.
boats come in and hear live music. And I love the water. If you would have asked me if I loved water years ago, maybe about 20 years ago, I would have told you no. But it was not something that I had actually experienced for me to say it was something that I loved. And when I did experience it, it was through someone else's lens. And so really having that exposure and getting out there. I think about, I am a Philly girl through and through. So I was born and raised in Philly. Shout out to all the Philly folks listening in.
Yeah.
But when I moved to Maryland, it was a different experience. First of all, I'm in a little town and it's like farmland and orchard and like, okay, they have real tractor pools. Never saw that in real life. You go to the county fair, there's actually animals there, like things like that, right? Different experience, exposure. But one of the funniest things that happened to me was a good girlfriend of mine said, hey, let's go look at an open house. So I'm like, oh, okay, she must have scheduled something. So that way, we could go and, see the house or whatever. And we get to this house and it has this sign in front, open house. And we walk in. I'm like looking around going, why are we just walking into this house?
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, so we can, it's an open house. You just walk in. No, no. Where's the real estate person or something? Like, we're not supposed to just walk in because
Yeah.
I'm from the city. You don't walk in a house unannounced.
You don't walk out, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Listen, yeah, you won't walk out at all. You don't walk in a house unannounced. But here it is. She's like, no, you just walk in. So I'm like, okay, that's weird, but we'll do it. I'm with her. So I guess I'm like, okay, at least I got somebody to fight with me if we need to fight.
Yeah.
Again, city mentality.
Yeah.
And we're going through this house. It's gorgeous. And it's all this furniture in there. And I'm just like, but we walked up and that door was unlocked.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, so people can come in and see the house whenever they want. And that completely blew my mind because living in Philadelphia, first of all, the door is usually not unlocked. If it's unlocked, it's because they know the people that are coming in and out of the home. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. My mother, when I was in high school, middle school, she would leave the door unlocked because she knew who was coming in and out. After high school, she didn't really leave it unlocked. But I had never had that experience. But it was great because it allowed me to do vision casting and say, oh my goodness, I would love to see this in my home. I would love this type of backyard. I kind of want a pool, but who wants to be cleaning a pool? But I want one. It allowed me to do those things. And it's that exposure. So you really have to ask yourself, what have you really been exposed to for you to be able to say, what do I like? What do I not like? Who am I? Exposure really changes that.
Yeah. So when you start opening up yourself to the world and different places and cultures, maybe not cultures then the same American culture, but it's very perforated because America is huge. It's not like Israel is a tiny island in the Mediterranean that yeah, that's surrounded by people who love us and want to do us good 24/7. But so how do you recommend, after having had all the things you had to go through, after trying to find yourself again, trying to move to a different life, having your children, um, being an inspiration to other people, how do you try to be a motivational personality, shall we say, and speaker?
So it's interesting. Most people would say, oh my goodness, I wake up and I take a cold shower, or I wake up and I do affirmations. And the affirmations were great. The cold shower, I hated. Tried it and hated that. I'm not a cold shower person.
Yeah, me neither.
But for me, it was always looking at what it can do. Like, wow, look at what I can do today. Look at where I can go and what I can experience today. And so being able to motivate other people meant me being transparent and me being open to saying, okay, anything can happen. So we just recently connected with people in India, and we connected with people from Africa who are now adding and sharing content for the blog that I do, the hashtag Our Voice Matters blog, and people from the UK. So there's content coming from different people all over the world. And it came about from me just saying, hey, I'm creating a platform that is going to motivate people worldwide. And people, read in from all over the world. I think the one day I looked and I was like, there's somebody reading this blog from Russia. Like, that's crazy when you think about it. But it's always saying, what more can I do? And I'll tell you one of the most motivational pieces for me to keep going is that when I was younger and I was writing poetry, one of the people that I wanted to meet was Dr. Maya Angelou. And the introvert in me, right? Exactly. Yeah. The introvert in me, no. Showing up to crowds and all of that, and then trying to introduce myself to her, no. So when she passed away, that really hurt. Because I really genuinely wanted to meet her. Like, I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with her. And so that really hurt. I said, dang, how many other things will you miss out on? How many other people will go to their grave without you having that experience of just talking to them? And so I said, okay, I'm not gonna, it's hard sometimes because I gotta push myself, but I'm not gonna let that be the narrative for me. Is that I had all of these great people in the world who are alive, who have amazing stories, who are doing some great things. And I was scared to talk to them. I was scared to open up. I was scared to ask questions. And I'm going to show you, this is why that is my motivation. This past weekend, I was nominated for 5 awards at the Power Up Summit. Yeah, I was excited. Like, I didn't win any, but I was nominated. That still is a win in my book. But we had one of the speakers was Lisa Nichols. And we had a VIP session where we could do Q&A. Now, normally, being the introvert, even now, guys, it has not changed. I would have gone and waited until other people, put their hand up to ask their question before I put my hand up.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. I ended up being the second person to ask her a question. And I recorded it for myself so that I could have it because it was so significant for me. Like, she didn't understand the significance, although her response was phenomenal. But it was so significant for me because you did it. You talked to someone that you really wanted to talk to while they were still here on earth.
Yeah.
You didn't allow, fear. You didn't allow introvertedness. Listen, you didn't allow any of that to hold you back. And it was crazy because I was the second person. There was one person after me, and then they had to cut off the questions because of how long the question answers were getting. If I would have been scared to raise my hand, I wouldn't have been able to ask my question.
Yeah. This is wonderful. It's your story is a snapshot, I think, a metaphor for the human life, because this is essentially what life is. You have to raise your hand at your turn, and you have to talk until you can't. So that this is a wonderful metaphor for life. And I want to thank you so much, Altovise, for this amazing talk. You're an inspiration for me and for a lot of people that you touched through your personal story, through your energy, through your books. And this was wonderful. I would like to talk with you in the future if you want.
Most definitely. I appreciate you having me on as a guest. It was a great conversation, and I'm always up for good conversations.
Yeah, me too. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Bye.